The diplomatic ship moved quietly through space, carrying families toward their new home on a distant colony. Ambassador Kevin Matthews sat in the passenger section, reviewing documents on his datapad. Around him, children laughed and played while their parents watched with tired smiles. The journey had been long, but they were almost there. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. The captain's voice came over the speakers, tense but controlled. Unknown vessel approaching. All passengers remain calm and stay in your seats. Through the windows, a massive alien ship appeared. It was gray and angular, covered with strange symbols that glowed a pale blue. The ship was 10 times larger than their own vessel. Sophie pressed her face against the window, her eyes wide. "Mommy, what is that?" Her mother pulled her close. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything will be okay." But the fear in her mother's voice said otherwise. The alien ship locked onto them with a beam of light. The human ship shuddered and stopped. They couldn't move. They were trapped. Ambassador Matthews stood up, trying to keep his voice steady. "Everyone stay calm. This is probably just a routine check. First contact protocols exist for situations like this." The alien ship pulled them inside a massive docking bay. Through the windows, the humans could see strange creatures moving around. They were tall and thin with 4 arms and smooth gray skin. Their heads were elongated, and they had no visible eyes, just smooth surfaces where eyes should be. These were the Zethran. A door hissed open on the human ship. 6 Zethran soldiers entered, carrying devices that hummed with energy. The leader spoke, and a translation device on its chest turned the sounds into words the humans could understand. "You will come with us for processing. This is standard procedure. Do not resist." Kevin stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Kevin Matthews, representing Earth. We are on a peaceful mission to our colony." "What is the reason for this detention?" "All new species must be processed and documented," the Zethran replied without emotion. "You will comply." The families were led off the ship and into the station. The hallways were cold and sterile, lit by harsh white lights. The children held tight to their parents' hands, some starting to cry. They were taken to a large room where Zethran officials waited behind transparent screens. One of them gestured to the group. "Adults in this line. Juveniles in that line." Kevin felt his blood run cold. "Wait, what do you mean? You're not separating us." "Processing requires separate documentation for different life stages. This is procedure." "No," a mother said, pulling her 2 children close. "You're not taking my kids." "Compliance is not optional," the Zethran said. More soldiers appeared, their weapons now visible. Sophie started crying. "Mommy, I don't want to go." "It's okay, baby. Mommy's right here," her mother said, but tears were streaming down her face too. The Zethran moved forward. They were not rough, not violent, but they were firm. One by one, they separated the children from their parents. The sounds of crying filled the room. Parents shouted and struggled, but the Zethran were stronger, and there were too many of them. 8 children were taken. Sophie, who was only 6 years old. 2 brothers named Danny and Chris, ages 8 and 10. A teenage girl named Amy, barely 14. 4 others, all scared, all calling for their parents. "Please," Kevin begged. "They're children. They need to be with their families." "They will be safe," Commander Vecra said, appearing in the doorway. "They will be fed and sheltered. Processing will take 48 hours. This is how we do things." "You don't understand," Kevin said desperately. "Human children aren't like adults. They need their parents. They need protection and comfort. You can't just lock them up alone. They are secure. That is sufficient." Vecra turned away. The matter closed. The children were led down a different hallway. Their cries echoed off the metal walls until distance swallowed the sound. The parents were taken to holding areas of their own, close enough to hear their children crying but unable to reach them. Commander Vecra returned to the command center, satisfied that procedure had been followed. The humans were detained, documented, and secured. Everything was by the book. They would complete processing, verify the humans' travel permissions, and release them in 2 days. Simple. An officer approached. "Commander, we are receiving multiple communications from human space. They are demanding we release the detained vessel. Inform them that standard processing takes 48 hours. They will have their people back soon enough." "Commander, there is something else. The messages are becoming more urgent. They mention the juveniles specifically." Vecra paused. "Why would juveniles be significant?" "I do not know, Commander, but the Earth government has declared this an emergency situation. They are sending military vessels." Military vessels. For a routine detention? Vecra pulled up the communication logs. Message after message was flooding in. All of them mentioned the children. All of them demanded immediate release. Then came a transmission from the Galactic Council itself. Vecra played it with growing confusion. This is the Galactic Council to all Zethran forces. You are ordered to release the human juveniles immediately. You have committed a serious violation of conduct. Multiple species are responding to this situation. Release the humans now. Vecra stared at the message. A serious violation. They had followed every protocol. The humans were safe, fed, and secure. What violation could there possibly be? Another officer rushed in. Commander, sensors are detecting multiple vessels entering the sector. 15 ships from various species. They are all heading here. 15 ships? Why would the entire galaxy care about one detained vessel? Commander, I believe we may have made an error. Vecra pulled up their files on humans. They read through the basic information. Physical characteristics, average lifespan, technological level. Nothing explained this reaction. Then Vecra found a section they had not read before. It was labeled Cultural Notes, High Priority. The first line made Vecra's skin go cold. Humans form extremely strong bonds with offspring. Separation from juveniles causes severe psychological distress in both parents and young. Human children require constant care and protection for many years to survive. Threatening or harming human children is considered the worst possible offense in all human cultures. Vecra read further. Human history was filled with examples of what happened when children were threatened. Wars had been fought. Entire nations had mobilized. Individual humans had performed impossible acts of strength and courage to save children who were not even their own. The protection of children is humanity's most sacred value, the file said. Do not separate human young from their guardians except in extreme emergency. Do not detain human juveniles. Do not threaten human children under any circumstances. Vecra had read this file after the detention. They should have read it before. Get me the detention area, Vecra ordered. Now. The screen showed the holding cells. In 8 separate cells, 8 human children sat alone. Little Sophie was curled in a corner, her thumb in her mouth, rocking back and forth. The 2 brothers were pressed against the wall where it joined their parents' cell, calling through the metal. Amy sat with her knees pulled to her chest, silent tears running down her face. They were terrified. By the ancestors, Vecra whispered. What have we done? Commander, the human military vessel is 3 hours out. They are broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Play it. A human voice filled the command center. It was calm, but there was something deadly underneath the calm. This is Captain Nathan Pierce of the Earth vessel Valiant. You are holding 8 human children in detention. You will release them to their parents immediately. If any harm has come to those children, if they are scared or hurt or traumatized, there will be consequences. You have 1 hour to respond. Vecra looked at the screen showing the children again. They were scared. Very scared. Some were crying. All of them were calling for their parents. Open a channel to all vessels, Vecra said quietly. Inform them we are preparing to release the humans immediately. And someone get me every file we have on human child development. I need to understand what we've done. The officer hesitated. Commander, what exactly have we done? Vecra looked at the screen one more time. Sophie had fallen asleep in the corner, tear tracks still visible on her small face. We caged their children, Vecra said. We took their most precious treasures and locked them away alone and afraid. We have committed the unforgivable. But we followed procedure. Then our procedures were wrong. Vecra stood up. Contact the human ambassador. Tell him we acknowledge our error. And pray to whatever gods might listen that they show us mercy. Because if those children are truly harmed by what we've done, we may have just started a war with the entire galaxy. The human warship appeared on the edge of the sensor grid like an avenging angel. Behind it came 2 more vessels, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. Captain Nathan Pierce stood on the bridge, his hands gripped behind his back so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Scan the station, he ordered. Find those children. Scanning now, Captain. I'm picking up 8 small human life signs in the detention level. Separate cells. They appear unharmed physically. Physically, Nathan repeated, his voice hard. What about mentally? What about emotionally? What about the nightmares they'll have for years? Nobody on the bridge answered. More ships began arriving. Not just human ships, but vessels from across the galaxy. The Moralki came first, their insect-like cruisers gleaming in the starlight. Then the Vorlax, massive crystalline beings whose ships looked like flying cathedrals. Even the Krell, who usually stayed neutral in everything, sent 3 destroyers. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Commander Vecra. They want to speak with you. Put them on screen. The Zethran commander appeared, and Nathan could see something in their posture that hadn't been there before. Shame, perhaps, or fear, maybe both. Captain Pierce, I am Commander Vecra. We are preparing to release all human prisoners immediately. We acknowledge that we have made a serious error. Please know that we meant no harm to your young. Meaning no harm doesn't fix harm done, Nathan said coldly. Those children have been locked in cells for almost 2 days. Alone, scared, crying for their parents.
Do you have any idea what you've done to them?
I am beginning to understand, Vecra said quietly. We have been reviewing your cultural files. We did not know that human juveniles were so vulnerable, so dependent, so precious to you. Every species' children are precious, a new voice said. The Moralki commander had joined the communication. This is Commander Zix of the Moralki fleet. What you have done is unthinkable. In our culture, to harm or frighten a child of any species is the greatest crime. We stand with humanity in demanding justice. The Vorlax added their resonating voice. Our young are the future of all we are. To cage them is to cage hope itself. We also stand with humanity. One by one, the other species added their voices. The Krell, the Drellith, even species that humanity had barely met. All of them condemning what the Zethran had done. All of them demanding the children be returned. Vecra looked overwhelmed. We will release them now, immediately. Please allow us to make this right. Prepare a docking bay, Nathan said. I'm coming to get them myself. 20 minutes later, Nathan and his team materialized in the Zethran transporter room. They wore combat gear and carried weapons, though Nathan hoped they wouldn't need them. Ambassador Kevin Matthews was waiting, his face gray with exhaustion and stress. Captain Pierce, thank God you're here. The children are this way. They've been alone this whole time. We could hear them crying, but they wouldn't let us go to them. They moved quickly through the corridors. Other human parents joined them, all rushing toward the detention level. Nathan could hear it before he saw it. The sound of children crying. Some were quiet whimpers. Others were desperate sobs. The holding area was clean and organized, just as the Zethran had promised. The cells had beds, bathrooms, and food dispensers. Everything a person might need. Everything except the one thing children needed most, their parents. Sophie saw her mother first through the energy barrier. The little girl was pressed against the field, her face wet with tears, her small hands reaching through even though it hurt. When the barrier dropped, she threw herself forward with a cry that broke Nathan's heart. Mommy, Mommy, I thought you were gone forever. Her mother caught her and fell to her knees, holding Sophie so tight it looked painful. But Sophie didn't complain. She just buried her face in her mother's shoulder and cried. The 2 brothers, Danny and Chris, ran to their father. He grabbed them both, pulling them close, his own tears falling freely. I'm here, boys. I'm here. You're safe now. Teenage Amy walked slowly to her parents, trying to be brave, trying to act grown up. But when her mother opened her arms, Amy collapsed into them like the child she still was. I was so scared, she whispered. I was so scared. One by one, the cells opened. One by one, families reunited. The parents held their children and whispered comfort. The children clung to their parents and cried out all the fear they'd been holding inside. Nathan watched it all, his jaw tight. Commander Vecra stood nearby, also watching. The Zethran officer looked at Nathan. This is what we did? Vecra asked quietly. Yes, Nathan said. This is what you did. You took children who trusted the world and taught them it isn't safe. You took children who believed their parents could protect them and proved they can't always. Those kids will have nightmares. They'll be afraid of strangers and locked doors. Some might need counseling for years. We followed our procedures, Vecra said, but there was no defense in the words. Just sorrow. Then your procedures were evil, Nathan said bluntly. I don't care if you meant well. I don't care if you thought you were being humane. You locked children in cages. There's no excuse for that. Vecra was silent for a long moment. Then the Zethran officer did something unusual. They knelt down, putting themselves at eye level with little Sophie. Small human, Vecra said gently. I am the one who ordered you put in that cell. I did not understand what I was doing, but that does not make it right. I am sorry. I promise you that no other child will ever be treated this way again." Sophie looked at Vecra with red, puffy eyes. She was still holding tight to her mother. "You promise?" "Promise you won't do it to other kids." "I promise," Vecra said. "On my honor and my life, I promise." Sophie nodded slowly, then buried her face back in her mother's shoulder. The Galactic Council met in emergency session the next day. Representatives from 50 species gathered to discuss what had happened. Ambassador Lisa Chen stood before them all, speaking for humanity. "The Zethran have asked what they did wrong," Lisa said, her voice clear and strong. "They followed their rules. They provided food and shelter. They didn't physically hurt anyone. So why is everyone so angry?" She paused, looking around the chamber. "I'll tell you why. Because children are not just small adults. They are the future. They are hope and innocence and trust. When you harm a child, you don't just hurt them in that moment. You change who they will become. You teach them the universe is cruel. You break something that might never fully heal." The chamber was silent. Those 8 children will remember this forever. Sophie will remember being taken from her mother. Danny and Chris will remember crying for their father through a wall. Amy will remember being locked up and helpless. This will be part of them now, part of their story, part of their fears. The Meralki representative stood. "The human speaks truth. What the Zethran did was unforgivable, but I believe it came from ignorance, not cruelty. The question is, how do we make sure this never happens again?" The debate lasted 6 hours. Species after species shared their own beliefs about protecting the young. The Krell explained how any Krell who found another species' child was honor-bound to guard them with their life. The Vorlax described their communal nurseries where entire cities protected the young together. The Dralith spoke of ancient laws that made harming children an act of war. Finally, they reached a decision. The Galactic Council would create new laws called the Covenant Accords. Every species in the galaxy would follow these rules. Children of any species would be protected. They would never be separated from their families without absolute necessity. They would never be detained alone. They would never be treated as just smaller versions of adults. The laws would apply to everyone. Break them and face the consequences. The Zethran accepted the judgment without argument. Commander Vecra personally apologized to each family, speaking words that had been carefully chosen to show real understanding and regret. "We harmed your children," Vecra said. "We cannot undo that harm, but we can make sure it never happens again. We will do better." "We will be better." Most parents nodded stiffly. Some remained silent, but Sophie spoke up again. "Will you really keep your promise?" she asked. Vecra knelt again. "Yes, small one. I will keep my promise. I will make sure no child ever feels the way you felt. This I swear." After everything was settled, the Galactic Council invited humanity to join as full members. The other species had seen something important. Humans were fierce in protecting their young, yes, but they also showed restraint. They sought justice, not revenge. They wanted to fix the system, not just punish the Zethran. Captain Pierce met with Commander Zix of the Meralki before departing. "Why did you come?" Nathan asked. "Why did so many species rush to help us?" Zix's translator hummed as they spoke. "Because we understood. When you said they had caged your children, we knew exactly how you felt. We would have done the same. Protecting the young is not just a human value. It is a universal value. Any species that doesn't protect its children will not survive long enough to reach the stars." Nathan nodded slowly. "I guess we have more in common than we thought." "Indeed," Zix agreed. "Welcome to the galactic community, Captain. You belong here." 6 months later, Sophie drew a picture in her classroom on New Terra. It showed her family, aliens of different shapes and sizes, and stars everywhere. At the bottom, in careful letters, she wrote,